we are going to kick off episode 675 of the podcast, devoted to the classic and sometimes the not-so-classic genre cinema of yesteryear, with a little bit of music like we do every week here on Monster Kid Radio. This is the song Sacrificial Fire from the band Voodoo Surf Tribe. It comes from their album Dark Magic, and you can find them at voodoosurftribe.bandcamp.com. Go check them out when you're done listening to this episode of the podcast, and let them know that Monster Kid Radio sent you. My name is Derek M. Cook, and I'd like to welcome you to the show where we're going to talk about, kind of in a roundabout way, a movie that we've already talked about here on the show in the past. I'm talking about the movie House of Wax, the original 1953 Vincent Price classic. Check out the archives at monsterkidradio.net to see where we've talked about it before. This time around, we're talking about it from the point of view of, well, the Joy Cinema showed it. And as one of the stops on Brother D's last ride through the Pacific Northwest, for now, I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to go to the Joy Cinema one last time before I make the move down to Arizona, because it'll be a long time before I get a chance to see or introduce a movie at the Joy for quite some time. I talk a little bit about why the Joy is important to us. I've mentioned it repeatedly here on the show, actually, in the past. And, well, I'm going to talk about it again, because when I got to introduce House of Wax, I kind of got a little overwhelmed with the fact that it was my last time there. And, well, instead of talking about House of Wax, I talked about how important the Joy is. So you'll hear that. But after the movie, I do pull out the recorder again, and I do chat with Monster Kid Radio irregulars, Jeff Blair and Matt Rashley, and of course, my lovely bride, Beth, who was back in town for a few days, ostensibly to help me finish packing, but really just, she didn't have to do any of that. I just really liked seeing her. But she was here, and just nice timing that we were able to go see House of Wax at the Joy one last time as a couple. And so you're going to hear their thoughts on the film as well, including Beth, who has never seen the movie. You'll get to hear what she had to think about the film as well. Also, this week on the show, as always, we've got Mark Matsky's Beta Capsule review as he continues his look at every single episode of every single Ultraman. And right now we're smack dab in the middle of Ultraman Ace. So you're going to hear his thoughts on a particular episode of that show. And Kenny's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland is an encore presentation of the House of Wax recording that he did for us the first time we played anything that had anything to do with House of Wax. So that's all coming up on this week's episode of the show. I do want to remind everybody that the Monster Kid Radio mystery boxes are still for sale. Please email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com to learn how you can buy your very own $65, that's $50 for the box, $15 for shipping, will get you at least $100, significantly more, I'm guessing, of merchandise from the Monster Kid Radio vaults. I can't pack it all up with me when I go to Arizona. I'd rather give it to you than dump it somewhere or just, I don't know, leave it on a street or something. Just buy the mystery boxes. I've got 7 available still. Email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, and you can learn how you can pick up your very own bit of Monster Kid Radio history. Sure, that sounds good. You know what else sounds good? Mark's segment and Kenny's segment and everything else. That's coming up right after this.
Do you dare to spend a night of terror in the Wax Museum? You can't tell the living from the dead. Are they flesh and blood, or are they wax? Are they alive, or are they dead? Jack the Ripper, Ivan the Terrible, Attila the Hun, Lizzie Borden, Lucretia Borgia, Bluebeard, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Terror in the Wax Museum.
Listen. Do you hear? It's coming back, turning the screen into a buzzing, crawling, creeping nightmare of terror. This is the son of the original Fly, daring to explore the forbidden science of transmigration that brought horrible death to his father.
You look as if you've just seen a ghost, old man.
It was the fly.
Fear that will fasten its choking grip on you, as his weird experiments spawn the twisted monstrosities of a living hell. The Rat Man, whose hands and feet are changed to paws. The living corpse who rose from his coffin. And the return of the Fly, seeking revenge with 1,000 eyes. Smashing anything that stands in his way.
Suppose he does come here. What if Philippe does not have the mind of a human, but the murderous brain of the Fly?
Then he will have to be destroyed.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 14, 5 Stars Scattered in the Galaxy. Picking up where last week's episode left off, the 4 Ultra Brothers, Zophy, First Ultraman, Ultra 7, and Jack are still in crucifixion mode on planet Golgotha, while Hokuto and Minami are revived at TAC headquarters. There's no time for celebration, however, as orders are handed down from Commanding Officer Takakura to construct a superliminal missile that will blow up planet Golgotha along with the Ultra Brothers. Hokuto objects to the degree that he can, but his protest is futile. Work begins on the 2-stage missile, which will plunge into the anti-universe to strike its target. However, the Yapul are also at work, bringing to life the fearsome being Superman Ace Killer, who absorbs the spacium energy of Ultraman, Zophy's M87 beam, Ultra 7's Emirium energy, and Jack's Ultra Bracelet, and then tests these powers on a clone of Ace with explosive results. TAC completes Superliminal Missile number 7, and Takakura appoints Hokuto to fly the mission against the objections of everyone on the crew, placing him in the impossible position of manning the weapon that will terminate Ace's brothers. 5 Stars Scattered in the Galaxy, which made its debut on July 7, 1972, is a relative rarity, the second part of a 2-episode story arc that's more gripping and dramatic than the first. The decision to put Hokuto on the superliminal missile provokes a remarkable reaction on the part of TAC, from Yamanaka's heartfelt offer to switch places to Captain Ryu's bold defiance of Commander Takakura. All the members have his back, a notable change from their early skepticism about the young recruit. Minami also rallies to Hokuto's aid, which has never been out of character, and it leads to a significant moment at the end of episode 14 in which she questions the nature of their relationship. You'll have to watch the show to see what kind of answer she gets. If there's a quibble to be had with 5 Stars Scattered in the Galaxy, it's that there's such an incredible build-up to Ace Killer that one would think he's virtually invincible, but it turns out he isn't even the big boss of the story. It seems like a strange choice at first, but it actually harmonizes with Hokuto's experience with TAC. The Ultra Brothers also have each other's backs, no matter what. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matsky reporting.
Edgar Allan Poe's Tomb of Ligeia. Poe considered it his masterpiece.
She will not die because she willed not to die.
Vincent Price, magnificent, macabre, defying the deathless, jealous spirit of Ligeia. A nightmare of terror, pitting their lust for life against the unholy powers of the undead. The undead attack the living. A wondrous world of maddening horror, starring Vincent Price in Edgar Allan Poe's Tomb of Ligeia in color.
Flesh crawls, blood curdles. Dr. Fives rises again with his new diabolical devices of torture and murder. See the gruesome scorpion's embrace, the eagle's caress, the sausage machine. Dr. Fives rises again, starring Vincent Price and Robert Quarry. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Dr. Fives rises again.
Have something you'd like to share with Monster Kid Radio? You can email the podcast at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 360-524-2484.
This is an encore presentation of the Famous Monster segment from Monster Kid Radio 598, first posted December 8th, 2022. Hello there, Monster Kid Radio heads. This is Kenny with a look at famous monsters of Filmland. Today, Derek and his guest are talking about the Vincent Price classic, House of Wax. Famous Monsters covered this film in FM 45 from July of 1967. It was a 14-page article with 16 pictures. It began with this introduction. In 1933, Warner Brothers released a horror film destined to be hailed as a classic, The Mystery of the Wax Museum. It was Lionel Atwill's finest hour, the picture in which Lionel came nearest to Lon Chaney for effectiveness of horror makeup. Lon got the world's greatest gasp when he unmasked in The Phantom of the Opera. Lionel was a close second when his face was revealed in the two-tone Technicolor picture of the early 30s. So, the Mad Doctor of Market Street, the Mad Doctor of Vampire Bat, and the Mad Doctor of Ghost of Frankenstein menaced Fay Wray in The Mystery of the Wax Museum. As if the screen queen of the 30s hadn't enough to contend with that year. It was the year of Kong. Unfortunately, neither the negative nor any print of the Atwill masterpiece seems to have survived, so there's no hope of seeing how good it was, even on television. But fortunately, 20 years later, the studio decided to remake its horror hit, and Vincent Price was ripe for it. And color had improved in the meantime, and 3D was in, so the House of Wax was built. One day in '53, the world woke up to find ads like these in the newspapers. The story of a man turned monster who craves the show world's beauties for his chamber of horrors. Nothing ever like it. Beauty and terror meet in your seat as every amazing scene of its sensational story comes off the screen right at you. You'll be stunned at the hideous face, the desperate lunge, the clawing hand. You'll be breathless as the city is gripped in the throes of wild panic. You'll be terrified when the Chamber of Horrors comes to ghastly life, the mighty mystery sensation of our time. In Los Angeles, they had special showings 24 hours around the clock. Thousands flocked to be terrified and frightened. Richard Denning, who fought the Black Scorpion, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the creature with the atom brain, was there at the Graveyard 12 Midnight showing, together with his wife Evelyn Ankers, well remembered for her Wolfman and Mummy roles. And in his 70th year, Bela Lugosi, cape and all, made a personal appearance, much to the delight of the crowd. This is what Bela, the Dennings, and a theater full of Fright fans saw that night. The House of Wax started melting records all over the United States. The article continues and concludes with a full synopsis of the film. Let's hear how they describe the famous unmasking scene. Jared astounds Sue by stepping out of his wheelchair and standing erect. He grasps her. Sue pounds with her clenched fist at Jared's face in a futile attempt to protect herself. His face begins to chip, to peel and crack. Beneath the wax, Price's classic features were contorted by makeup called the most hideous, shudder-inspiring mask ever worn by an actor on the screen. Said one report, not since the early days of Hollywood horror films has an actor had to pay so much attention to his makeup. The role Price plays calls for a grotesque appearance, which could only be achieved by creating a cosmetic mask to hide his handsome face. Price himself reported that, in order to be on the set at 9 a.m., I had to be in the makeup department no later than 6 a.m. It took a full 3 hours to make me up, and more than an hour to remove the mask. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next week. For MKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
How's it going, everybody? So back in the day, Jeff would actually come out and introduce me. He's up in the booth right now working hard to make sure this movie goes off without a hitch. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Derek M. Cook, and I am the producer of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. That is Monster Kid Radio. You can find it at monsterkidradio.net or wherever you pick up your favorite podcasts. We're all over the internet. Just look us up. We've been going for over 10 years now. We have over 666 episodes for you to check out. And every week on the show, we talk about a classic monster movie or a not so classic monster movie or a topic involving monster movies. And I wanted to come out here and talk about House of Wax because this is such a good movie. How many people have seen House of Wax before? How many of you have seen it in 3D before? Not as many people. How many people are here for the very first time? Yes. All right. So I promise when we talk about these movies on the show, on the podcast, we do give a spoiler warning because we do spoil the films. But I'm not going to spoil it for you now, except at the very end when the lion shows. No, I'm just kidding. There's no spoilers here, but I am going to tell you that this is a classic Vincent Price film. Now, we know who Vincent Price is, right? Yeah? Let's give it up for Vincent Price. Come on. One of the patron saints of Monster Kid Radio and all of monster moviedom as far as I'm concerned. Now, he had been making movies before House of Wax, and he even did a couple of spooky things. He was in an Invisible Man movie in the 40s for Universal and had a cameo in an Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. But this House of Wax is really what kind of set him on the path to becoming a horror guy, and he loved it. Now, he did other things too after this, of course. In fact, he even did a movie called The Mad Magician not too long after this, which is basically a remake of this, except instead of a wax museum guy, he's a magician, doing pretty much the exact same thing in 3D. So, he loved doing this kind of stuff. Yes? Dr. Phibes, very cool. He did 2 Dr. Phibes films. What are some other awesome Vincent Price movies?
I think he was in The Fly.
Yes, he was. He was in actually the first 2 original Fly films. He wasn't in the third for whatever reason, but he was in Fly and Return of the Fly. Mask of the Red Death. He did a whole bunch of awesome Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe adaptations. That's probably the most well-known and the best one of the bunch. But Vincent Price is in this, and he's fantastic in this. He's not alone, though. There's a great cast in here, including Carolyn Jones. Does anybody know who Carolyn Jones is? Yes. That's right, Morticia from the Addams Family. She appears in this as well. And my wife, who is in the back here, has never seen this movie. And on the way out here, she asked me if there's anything about this movie she needs to know. And I said, well, there's a character in this movie that you're either going to really love or really hate. It's Carolyn Jones' character is what I was referring to. No spoilers, though, of course, no spoilers. Charles Bronson is in this movie. Of all people to appear in a horror film with Vincent Price is Charles Bronson. And I've got a few other notes here. Let me pull out my paddle ball of notes here and check out some of this here. I do want to give a shout out to an actor by the name of Nedrick Young. He plays a character named Leon in this. The reason I want to mention him is that in most prints and transfers of this film, you won't see his name because he was blacklisted. Part of the whole Red Scare thing, he got on the blacklist, and because of that, he just could not get credit or even get work in a lot of things. So he was a writer, he was an actor. He wrote the film Inherit the Wind, which is kind of a pretty important dramatic film, if you ask me. But yeah, he's in this as well as Leon and does a really, really good job. It's just unfortunate at the time in the 50s with the Red Scare, McCarthyism and all that, he got blacklisted, couldn't get work, couldn't get credits. When this movie was first released, for whatever reason, the studios decided to really do it up big. They wanted to have a huge premiere by inviting Bela Lugosi and a gorilla out. I'm not sure why, but if you go on YouTube, look up House of Wax premiere, and you're going to see Bela Lugosi in his vampire cape coming out, leading a guy in a gorilla suit to the movie. There is no gorilla in this movie. I know I said no spoilers, but I'll tell you that now. There are no gorillas, and there's definitely no vampires in this film. 3D films have been around for quite a while. This is probably one of the biggest ones to come out in the 50s. And of course, these days we see 3D movies quite a bit with the big blockbusters and that sort of thing. But House of Wax really kind of set the mold for what you can do with horror movies, monster movies, and 3D. And it's just a phenomenal film, especially considering the fact that the director could not see 3D. He had one working eye. Andre Detoth wore an eye patch because he was blind in one eye. So he had to direct a 3D film without being able to see the 3D effects, which, you'd think was a hampering of the creative process, or maybe it just made that movie that much better because he had to focus more on the film, the story, the performances, the actual direction of a movie without worrying about the gimmick. So I think it's pretty impressive when you consider that. Now, I would not recommend watching the movie with one eye. Wear your 3D glasses. There's some really cool 3D effects in here. I did get a paddle ball because I thought I'd do some cool paddle ball. I can't do a paddle ball, but there's a guy in here that does a paddle ball pretty cool. So keep an eye out for that and hold on to your popcorn when that happens. The other thing that I want to talk about isn't about the movie. And I hope Jeff can hear me when I say this. And this theater is super, super important to me. My wife and I are actually about to leave town. We're moving down to Arizona to start a new part of her life. She's got a new job down there. I'm looking for work down there. We've got family down there, which means this is probably the last time that I'm going to be at the Joy Cinema for quite some time. And this place is very important to me because when I launched Monster Kid Radio back in 2013, the first few episodes were done at a convention, but episode number 4, I recorded the intro and outro of that episode in the parking lot after having seen a screening of the movie She-Freak here at the Joy. 1967's She-Freak, which is an okay movie, but it was part of the Weird Wednesday series that Jeff used to do. And when I found the theater and discovered that it wasn't that far from my home, I made it a point to come to this theater because this place is a magical place. So magical, in fact, that last year, my wife and I, when we got married right here in this very spot. So the Joy Cinema is a very special place. I'm not going to be able to come out here very often to support it because I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in Arizona doing my thing and trying to find a theater to maybe fill the shoes of this place. I don't think I'm going to. So I have to count on all of you to keep supporting the Joy Cinema for me, for my wife, and for all of us. Because again, this theater is a special place. What we do here when we watch movies like House of Wax or She-Freak or any of the other movies that I was lucky enough to introduce here, things like Argo Man or The Giant Spider or Horrors of Spider Island, Plan 9 from Outer Space, a couple of Paul Naschy films. The one movie I never got a chance to introduce was Manos, the Hands of Fate, but maybe someday. It's meant a lot to me, so I'm going to have to count on all of you to kind of carry the flag, carry the torch, carry the banner for the Joy Cinema. Tell your friends about this place. Let them know about what kind of an amazing job Jeff and his staff are doing. Can you do that for me? Can you give them applause? I really had a whole lot more to say. I wrote a whole bunch of notes down, and I know it might sound a little silly, but I'm getting a little broken up. So enjoy the movie. Jeff, I see you up in the projection booth. I hope you can hear me. Thank you. Thank you.
The House of Wax, the ultimate dimension in terror, comes to the screen in StereoVision 3D. Vincent Price at his diabolical best will take you room by terrible room on a journey to the ultimate chamber of horrors. StereoVision 3D will synthesize before your eyes the terrifying reality of it all. In StereoVision 3D, House of Wax is more than a movie. It's an experience you'll never forget.
Movie's over. We're hanging out in the lobby. Other than Derek kind of losing his train of thought and not doing a very good job introducing the movie. What did you think, Jeff?
It is a cinematic masterpiece.
Wow.
so often we love Vincent Price and we love his roles, but the quality of the movies he's in doesn't often show. He's usually better than the material he's in.
Really? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Not this case. I mean, yes, he's still a master, but this wasn't produced as schlock. This was produced as a major motion picture.
Prestige.
The prestige, the quality is there in every single thing. The only reason that when I saw this the first time here at the Joy in 3D, I didn't give it a 10 on IMDb, is they do too much of the paddleball guy.
I love the paddleball guy.
I like it. He's fun. He's obviously a master of what he does, but it's just too much.
Matt, what do you think, dude?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
It was great.
Okay.
I hadn't seen the movie since I was a kid, and it was in 2D on a old television set. So finally seeing it in, 3D on a big screen, it went beyond my expectations.
Yeah. Too gimmicky or no?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think it was just the right balance of 3D tricks, and the story holds through all the way through it.
Vincent Price is a master.
Master, brilliant. Such a great turn as a character.
So you were saying something about the cinematographer as we were walking out?
Yes. We often talk about how the director could not see in 3D.
Well, yeah, he was blinded in one eye.
Right, yeah. Andre de Toth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't really see the effects. Another one that was a chance change was that the cinematographer, Peverell Marley, who also shot the 10 Commandments and The Greatest Show on Earth.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he got the job the day before they started shooting. But the original cinematographer had fallen ill, and it was a Warner Brothers production.
Mm-hmm.
He was available, so they put him in the position of being the cinematographer. Having never used a stereoscopic 3D camera before. And there's a great article from ASC, the American Society of Cinematography, about this movie. And there's quotes in it about his perspective. And the whole time he was so worried of things being distracting in the background that they were like overly conscious of the way that the set design was, so that the right things would pop and draw your eyes in 3D without distracting you away from the great story. It was really, really well done. If anyone's interested in 3D and want to learn more, this is the movie to go to.
Well, okay, hold on. Creature from the Black Lagoon is 3D, dude.
Oh, that's brilliant too. I'm not saying that there's one film to pick.
Okay.
But this is definitely on that list, and it's with Creature.
I was about to change this whole best friends thing here for a second.
No, the underwater work in 3D on Creature is top notch.
That's full next level.
Yeah.
It's a different kettle of fish.
Wow. Overboard. So I got to know what my wife thought of the movie.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I do think they made good use of the 3D. I like the paddleball guy, but I guess opinions vary on that one.
So do I need to learn how to do a paddleball?
No, that's okay. you have other skills.
Oh, well.
No, it was really fun. Very, very different use of the 3D than in Creature, and so that was neat.
So we're watching the movie, and every once in a while you kept kind of giggling and going, ooh. Why?
Oh, just stuff sticking out.
Was it the 3D or was it other stuff? Or
it was mostly the 3D. I also felt like the music was really good. There's a good foreshadowing in the music.
The score was
it was fun.
The score is amazing. The score for the trailer is Max Steiner, but it's somebody else who did the score in the film, and it's still amazing. So
I will say they knew what they were doing in those old movies when they put intermissions in them.
Yeah, right? I was wondering if that was going to be in here or not, the 10-minute intermission that appeared on screen for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So It's also a much shorter film than I remember it being. It seemed pretty quick, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess because the two halves are kind of cut apart. So, yeah.
And so I got to know, what did you think of Carolyn Jones?
Okay, so you were saying because the character could be maybe a little annoying?
The trilling laughter. Oh, what a card. You know, I just, yeah.
Yeah, but I lived...
Gold digger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've lived in... I've shared a room in the past with someone with that voice, so it doesn't bother me.
You were a roommate with a friend of Tinkerbell.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you did like her.
Yeah.
Okay.
How fun to, like, know that she had to play so many different things. Like,
yeah.
That's really cool.
Okay. Anything else about House of Wax?
I just love seeing it here at the Joy with all of our besties, and I hope everybody will support either the Joy if you're in the Portland area or your local homegrown theater.
Local homegrown theater. That's what the Joy is. You were not in the lobby when this happened. Before the movie started, some dude was walking by. Were you here for this? Matt, you were here for this. When the guy walked in from the street and was commenting on the theater. Were you here for that? No? I'm not the only one who saw that?
Someone was commenting on the marquee lights outside.
No, there was some guy who...
How some they were.
He also swore a lot more than I'm comfortable swearing on Monster Kid Radio, but... Yeah, I'm gonna F with you because this is such great stuff. This is the nostalgia.
No, I wasn't here for that.
It was amazing. He didn't buy a ticket, but he like popped his head in and just talking about how great the place was. So I thought that was cool.
I think it's unfair to talk about Carolyn Jones, who is a secondary character, and not talking about Phyllis Kirk,
who didn't want to be
female lead.
Who did not want to be in the movie.
She didn't want to be in the movie, but then she grew to actually appreciate it.
Yeah, she was a contract player to Warner Brothers, and she didn't want to be in it. But they're like, well, tough.
Yeah, but she did a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, and she ended up having fun doing it. So.
She didn't end up being, a household name like Carolyn Jones, although she did play Nora Charles in the TV version of The Thin Man.
Yeah.
That's probably her other big claim to fame. But yeah, she's really great.
It's really good.
I would never have guessed that she didn't want to be in the picture.
No.
Based on how great she is in the movie.
Yeah,
well, she
does a great job.
She did say later that as they got into it, she ended up enjoying herself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the set design,
gorgeous, right?
Yeah, everything. The costuming. Some of the costumes on the wax models, there wasn't much there. It's kind of amazing how much they show for 1953.
Yeah.
If the MPAA existed back then, this might have been an R rating considering, the morals of the times.
As the wax models are burning and melting at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that's disturbing.
It's disturbing, and it makes me think about like the old photos you saw of people who were like attacked with gas that came home from World War I.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that real extra level of horror. Just wow.
Well, and speaking to that, you really have to appreciate the work of Gordon Bow, the makeup artist, who did the makeup effects.
Mm-hmm.
I read an article where he studied real burn victims and their scars.
There you go.
To get it right. And Vincent Price sat through getting, made up for the movie, and it took him 3 hours to get into the makeup and 3 hours to get out of it. And it looks amazing. I think it still holds up to this day.
Well, just imagine how much time it took for them to do his hands for the one time we see his damaged hands. And the other time he's wearing gloves, which is a really good cheat.
Yeah.
But the one time we see his damaged hands, and it looks truly damaged and horrific. And, at that point, you're feeling sorry for it.
Now, have either of you seen the film this is based on, Mystery of the Wax Museum?
The 1933 movie? No.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a remake.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the original.
It's really good as well. It's the gimmick in that one isn't 3D, but that it's actually in color for being a 1933 film.
Yeah, it's an early color movie.
But it's also really, really good. I can't speak to the 2005 remake of House of Wax other than...
Reviews on that are not good.
The score is okay. There's also Mystery of the Wax Museum from the 70s with Ray Milland, which is pretty good.
That one was made for TV, right?
I don't remember. Hoggy Huggaboom would know. They actually came on the show and talked about it with me. And then The Mad Magician. It's highly recommended. Again, very thematically similar to this, but, you know.
Well, I haven't seen it, but it's a Vincent Price film, so I'll put it on the list.
I've talked about it here on the show. Check the archives, listeners. Anything else you'd like to say, Lev?
You know, if someone you love tells you should go see a 3D movie you've never seen, trust them.
But what I just heard is that she said, always listen to your husband.
Something like that.
That does bring us to the end of this week's episode of the show. Thank you for bearing with me. I know it's a shorter episode than normal, but with all the packing and everything else going on right now, I just worry about getting a show out at all. So thank you for listening to this episode, and please let people know about it. Share the post, retweet tweets, or re-X's is how they say it now. Check out our social media links over at monsterkidradio.net, Facebook page and group, X, Reddit, Patreon, and Discord. We're all over the internet. Just look up Monster Kid Radio. You're going to find us. I'm so glad that you have found us. And if you have anything you'd like to share, well, you heard Beth say it earlier. I'm going to have her say it again.
Have something you'd like to share with Monster Kid Radio? You can email the podcast at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail at 360-524-2484.
What's coming up next week on the show? Well, I hope to have a recording from Rose City Comic Con. My very last panel at Rose City Comic Con is before I moved to Arizona. And it's not my panel, actually. It's a panel that Jessica Dwyer is moderating. And I was honored to be asked to be part of this particular panel. The name of the panel is Classic Modern Monsters from TV and Film. And I'll just read to you the description from the Rose City Comic Con website. The 1970s saw a massive resurgence of the classic monster in a new and powerful way, from blaxploitation films like Blackula and Sugar Hill, where the vampire and zombie were used to talk to a new generation, to Count Yorga, who showed us a terrifying glimpse into a Manson-like monster, and to the small screen with The Night Stalker. The classic creatures were brought back to life in modern times and spoke to modern problems. This panel will cover the way pop culture turned gothic for inspiration and how these modern classics influence today's creators. This is going to be a super fun panel. Jessica Dwyer is an author. She writes for a number of different magazines. She's involved in a lot of horror fan spaces. She's been guests at various horror conventions over the years. I've kind of been in her circles, but never really spent a lot of time with her. So I'm excited to just chat with her on this panel and be a panelist while she moderates me and the other guests. I'm hoping Joe Lansdale is going to be there because he's supposed to be on the panel. And to be on a panel with Joe R. Lansdale, how cool is that going to be, guys and gals and everybody else? That's going to be awesome. So come back next week for that. Hopefully that recording turns out okay. If not, well, there will be something else, but that's the plan. Follow us on Facebook because that's where I make the announcements about what is officially coming on the next episode of Monster Kid Radio.
Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death or other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, Monster Kid Writer, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. That's teamdeath.com. Please rate and review Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Sacrificial Fire is copyright 2023 by Voodoo Surf Tribe. It appears on their album Dark Magic. You can find them at voodoosurftribe.bandcamp.com. They're also on Facebook. You can pick up the album Dark Magic. There's 16 tracks on there. Buy the CD for $14 or buy the digital album for even less. Check them out. Please let them know that Monster Kid Radio sent you. My name's Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.